Well, our movie this week is one of Kent's all-time favorites. This is Spinal Tap. It's Rob Reiner's first ever film, and he started with a mockumentary. This is, for those not familiar, Spinal Tap is an English rock band who's kind of in their dying days. They come over to America, and they're trying to back up their new tour.
Their new album,
which has a very controversial cover that the new record label refuses to print. So, and they find out throughout the course of the American tour that they're getting less and less popular, and they go from playing, arena shows to basically playing a private function in an Air Force base. So that's basically the movie, but it's just a behind the scenes look at this rock band. The first thing I wanted to ask you, Kent, because you had a long held axiom. If you have more than 3 screenwriters, it's a bad movie. But Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, and Rob Reiner are all listed as screenwriters. Why does this one break the trend?
Because actually Reiner wanted to list the entire cast as writers, but the Writers Guild would not allow that. So they only could list the 4 of them. This movie is almost 100% improvised.
Crazy.
They set up the sketches, this scene, this is going to happen. Go. And so it's all improvised. So all of those great lines are stuff these guys just came up with.
Unreal.
And they play all the instruments, right? The backstory is that Michael McKean and Chris Guest were actually in a band together when they were in school at NYU. So they were like actual musicians, right, on some level. And then the 4 of them, Shearer along with Reiner, and did Spinal Tap as I think it was a TV video, and it was just a performance and funny, but like that long. And then and that was in the 70s. And then they brought Spinal Tap back in the early 80s and made the movie. So, so this was all stuff, all of them made up. And so that's why it doesn't count on the rule, because there really was no script.
That is incredible. Like, Curb Your Enthusiasm, may that show rest in peace. That was the same thing, right? Where Larry David would have an idea and they would just go in and they would riff. And man, like, Ken, I'm always amazed. Like, I love people that are quick-witted, right? That are very humorous. Yes. But to do that with plot and where it's coherent and makes sense, and to be as funny as this movie is, like, this is only the second time that I've seen it. I will not make it, as long as it took to watch it the second time for my third viewing. But man, like the scene where they're going through all the names that they had as a band, like that is such a funny scene, but it's obviously creative too, because there's a lot of bands that change names and so like that, but that whole riff. And so knowing that they just kind of came up with it, just like the gears going and how he just kept naming them and and then this happened. And then they changed their name. So then we changed our name. It was just so funny.
And here's the other thing that makes it really work, and the improv is part of it, is this was shot documentary style. The cinematographer was a documentary cinematographer. So that's why you get the handheld camera and all that craziness. But it was also first take. 90% of what's on the screen is first take.
That's incredible.
Even though it's ad-libbed. Wow. And the crazy thing again is this is Rob Reiner's directorial debut. Yes. And we think today of Rob Reiner and all the great films that he's done, but what did you think of the fact that this project was his first, because it's a non-traditional movie. It's not just, scripted and, scenes are, blocked out and everything like that. What do you make of the fact that this was his first and how he was able to grow from there?
Let me put it this way. In 1984, is that when this thing came out? it was not a Rob Reiner movie, so to speak, right? You knew Rob Reiner. He was Meathead in All in the Family, right? He wasn't. And so you go into the movie and there's him talking, right, as one of the characters, and then you figure out, hey, this guy's also the director, and it was right, and you don't even think anything about it because it was the first time that I'd seen him as a director, right? That thought comes, okay, the guy who made Spinal Tap is the guy who made When Harry Met Sally, is the guy who made, right, all of these movies that are the Princess Bride that are like real
Stand By Me.
Yeah, so it's interesting to look back, but when I saw the movie, I remembered going, it's Meathead, and he's the director, and he's kind of the star, and then you figure out what it is, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Here, the trick that this is the great Spinal Tap story that some of us have anyway.
Okay.
It was not a hugely distributed film, nor was it a hit when it was in the theaters. Okay, that number. But when it came out here, it did not open in Lincoln. It opened on exactly one screen that I know of in Omaha. There used to be, before they built all the 16 and 20 plexes, there used to be a little 3-screen theater in Millard. It opened at this theater in Millard.
Wow.
And so I drove up there on the Saturday, the day after it opened, and we went to like a 3:30 movie, something like that, 5:30 maybe. And there were all of 10 people in there. There were the 3 of us who got it, and then there were the 7 who thought, this is a real movie. Right?
Ken, obviously, the most famous, well, I guess I'll ask you, is the most famous scene in this movie is this one goes to 11, right? Like that's kind of
one of them for sure.
That scene gets me every time, but there is something about, because the whole movie is kind of building to the album, of course, is going to come out, and the cover is too risque, and they have that great conversation about it and like what's on it and everything.
Smell the glove.
But when they finally do it and it's black, and I just love the delivery of how much more black can it be, and the answer is none more black, and it just, oh my gosh, that. And Kent has it for those listening right now. Kent has the Black Album now. Smell the glove.
It's
oh my gosh,
it's just in there.
That is so good. That line just absolutely murdered me the first time, and it murdered me again when I watched it.
Okay, so here's the funny thing. Again, I had never seen this before, and of course, I am familiar with the idea of turning it up to 11. So when the scene happens, and as soon as I see the 11, it's like, oh, okay, they're having fun with the idea of turning it up to 11. Then it was after I watched the movie, when I looked it up, that's where the phrase comes from. So I thought it was funny initially that they were making fun of this idea of turning it up to 11. And then I realized they created it. And of course, the argument of, why don't you just make 10 the loudest?
But these go to 11.
Nigel, is Chris Guest not brilliant as playing this dumb guy, man?
He is. He's absolutely stupid.
I like how you take the guy through the guitars and he pointed out one of them that wasn't even used and just said, don't point at it. Don't even touch it.
Don't even point at it.
It's that great.
The other thing, Kent, that I think is really funny too is, in that era, and you can speak to this better than any of us, the way that music evolved, it was just so different. Like the Beatles, right? Like the story that they're their own, 10-year run can tell is quite interesting. But I like the idea of this band just constantly chasing after everything that people are doing. And so all the flashbacks, it's like the way in which the band changes and evolves over the course of the entire movie, because they're trying to do whatever is popular and in at that moment in time.
And failing every time.
And failing every single time. And then, of course, I mean, the drummer, like that was like the drummer stuff was so funny. I forgot about that joke.
They some of that stuff, like obviously the people didn't die, but there were like several of the English metal bands early on that had 6 different drummers, right?
Right.
So they took real stuff. Okay, where they can't find their way through the backstage to get to the stage, that's actually taken from a Tom Petty music video.
Okay.
Right? But that's the experience. Every band will tell you they've had that. And every band has Spinal Tap experiences. Every band that's played any place of any size where you have to find your way to the stage has had that happen to them. I mean, Eric Clapton famously said he thought it was about them.
Right. I mean, there were some people that thought exactly. And this kind of, the movie Major League, a lot. It's a very popular film among baseball players because it kind of hit. And this is the same thing for rock bands or musicians because of, just some of the things that take place behind the scenes, with music reps and whatnot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like the authenticity, so to speak, it even extends to those guitars that were in that scene, come from Norman's Rare Guitars, which is this classic place in Ventura. I think it's in Ventura. Anyway, it's in the valley in California. I've been there.
Right.
And that's where all the musicians go, and a lot of the guitar players you'd think of in that area go to get their guitars, right? So it's like, those were like classic Norm's guitars that were probably worth $10,000 each then, and now are worth $100,000 or whatever. Yeah. But so you had that. Steven Tyler was really upset with the movie because Aerosmith had just done its big downhill slide.
Yep.
84, but one of their records was Stonehenge.
So they were going directly after Steven Tyler.
Steven Tyler thought they were going after him.
Right.
Oh man.
Well, that's
going after anybody, but that'll tell you how close this hits home and how well the satire works, right?
that whole thing,
that old bit when he's drawn, because the idea is they're doing the Stonehenge and they want the big set prop on stage. So it's supposed to be this giant, anyone knows Stonehenge, this giant, Stonehenge monument. And so as he's drawing out this stuff on a napkin,
inches,
instead of using the 1 hash mark for feet, it's double hash mark for inches. And so they bring in the prop, and it's like, oh, so this is the model. Oh, this is the good. No, this is the prop. and so they have these trolls or whatever, these little people dancing around this 18-inch monument.
And then I like it when the band starts noticing it. That was the best part. It's like, what in the world? That, and then Kent, the other onstage moment
was almost trampled by a dwarf.
The other onstage moment that I'm thinking about today and laughing at again is the guitar solo scene when he's got the violin and he's doing the violin and what was it? He had another instrument or whatever, and just like, I mean, it just nails rock music so well. All the hilarity that can come from people with egos the size of that.
Oh yeah, and the shell prop that didn't open for
bass player.
Harry Shearer gets
opens up based on something that actually happened as well, not that exact prop,
right?
Yeah, that something happened to somebody that couldn't get on stage out of the prop until after the stunt was over. So they stole that. So they took a bunch of real stuff, right? And the only plot that they stuck in, they really didn't, I don't think, start this with a big plot. And they had to figure out, okay, we got to have a plot. So the Derek St. Hubbins' girlfriend. And the manager quits and all of that as it goes downhill. She was inserted into the movie so it would have some kind of plot by the end.
Interesting.
Well, and it ends up working out because it's basically like a Yoko Ono situation where, the woman comes in, the girlfriend or the wife or whatever, and there's jealousy and there's resentment, and the band breaks up because of it. The other thing about this too is there's a lot of good cameos in here. Bruno Kirby, I love the bit where he's playing the limo driver and he's trying,
having the conversation.
He's trying to have the conversation.
Yes, I can, if Frank says.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fran Drescher is here. I did not. Okay, so Billy Crystal shows up. They're doing this, cocktail party, and there's these mines for waiters. And I recognize Billy Crystal. I didn't realize that the other one was Dana Carvey.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that either.
And then probably my favorite was Paul Schaefer, of course, David Letterman's band leader, but his name, Artie Fufkin.
And he kept introducing himself, Artie Fufkin, Artie Fufkin, Artie Fufkin, Artie Fufkin.
Oh, it was really good.
Yeah.
I again, it's one of those movies that I never saw because it wasn't in a lot of theaters, and then it wasn't really on like HBO or anything.
No. It became a hit via VHS.
Yeah.
So you kind of had to go search it out rather than it coming to you, like so many movies.
And then it became people figured it out, and it got put on the National Film Registry about 10 years ago as a movie to be preserved. There's all kinds of, you spoke about the cameos. Also, Sir Dennis Eatonhog is what Patrick McNee, who was the star of the Avengers in the 60s, right? Fran Drescher, who plays, this is kind of a side that if you're not in the music business, you wouldn't know, but Fran Drescher, the publicist she plays, is almost identical to this woman named Susan Blonde, who just recently retired, and Susan absolutely embraced it. It was great that they made fun of her in the movie. All these things came together in part because of the Saturday Night Live connection and Second City, right? I mean, because but Christopher Gaston McKean and Harry Shearer were kind of in with those Second City people.
Yeah, they were all part of the show at one point.
And of course, so was Paul Schaefer.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these connections came together. I've talked to Paul Schaefer about being in the movie, and he said it was like, he said he was, I think he said his the entirety of his filming lasted like 3 hours.
Oh wow,
that's crazy.
Because he was just in those two scenes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they're all improv. First take, you're done, go home. But he said it was hilarious, and of course, everybody knows each other. And y'all know, right, that a week from Friday, not next Friday, but the 12th, the return of Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Ken, I wanted to ask you about that because most of the time with comedies,
especially this far apart.
And especially this far apart, 41 years, the sequels are not very good. Sequels to comedies, for whatever reason, I have my guesses on why it's so difficult. I think mainly it's because, especially when you get further away, it becomes a nostalgic play where you just want to lean into all the jokes that everybody likes. So what's your hope level on this being good, given that you enjoy the first one so much, but it's also been 41 years and it's a comedy sequel?
I've got faith in the boys. That'll be decent. My big fear is apparently like Elton John and Paul McCartney turn up in the movie and some other, and that's always scary when you hear, oh, these guys are going to come in and play themselves. Okay. But I've got some faith in the boys, and it's great that they're all the major guys are still alive
Correct.
because
Yeah,
they're
all four of them.
and 80s now, and they're all, the three are alive. Chris Guest and Michael McKean, Harry Shearer are all alive. So is obviously Rob Reiner, but I assume they're going to bring Fran Drescher back.
He is listed on the cast list. Yes,
and the what actress's name just escaped me that played the girlfriend. She's still with us. So
wow.
my guess is she'll probably be back. And so you're talking about the vast majority of that important cast, so to speak, can come back for this movie 40 years later, that's kind of astounding to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Paul Schaefer will be back as well.
Yeah.
So they're going to they're going to bring it all back together, and it's coming out in theaters, right? This won't be a
right. Oh, it's actually opening in IMAX before it opens.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, talk about a role reversal. Given where
Spinal Tap on the screen as big as a wall, and so in IMAX, and then for me also being released at the same time is there's a fine line between clever and stupid. You recall that? Mm-hmm. That is the title of the book that the four of them wrote about making of the first one.
Okay.
That comes out on like the 12th of September.